An epidemic is the rapid spread of infectious disease to a large number of people in a given population within a short period of time, usually 2 weeks or less. For example, in meningococcal infections, an attack rate in excess of 15 cases per 100,000 people for 2 consecutive weeks is considered an epidemic. Epidemics of infectious disease are generally caused by several factors, including a change in the ecology of the host population, for example increased stress or increase in the density of a vector species, a genetic change in the pathogen reservoir, or the introduction of an emerging pathogen to a host population by movement of pathogen or host. Generally, an epidemic occurs when host immunity to either an established pathogen or newly emerging novel pathogen is suddenly reduced below that found in the endemic equilibrium and the transmission threshold is exceeded. An epidemic may be restricted to one location. However, if it spreads to other countries or continents and affects a substantial number of people, it may be termed a pandemic. The declaration of an epidemic usually requires a good understanding of a baseline rate of incidence. Epidemics for certain diseases, such as influenza, are defined as reaching some defined increase in incidence above this baseline. A few cases of a very rare disease may be classified as an epidemic, while many cases of a common disease, such as the common cold, would not. There are several changes that may occur in an infectious agent that may trigger an epidemic. These include 55. Increased virulence. Introduction into a novel setting changes in host susceptibility to the infectious agent. An epidemic disease is not required to be contagious, and the term has been applied to West Nile fever and the obesity epidemic, for example by the World Health Organization, among others. The conditions which govern the outbreak of epidemics include infected food supplies such as contaminated drinking water and the migration of populations of certain animals, such as rats or mosquitoes, which can act as disease vectors. Certain epidemics occur at certain seasons. For example, whooping cough occurs in spring, whereas measles produces 2 epidemics, one in winter and one in March. Influenza, the common cold, and other infections of the upper respiratory tract, such as sore throat, occur predominantly in the winter. There is another variation, both as regards the number of people affected and the number who die in successive epidemics. The severity of successive epidemics rises and falls over periods of 5 or 10 years. The term epidemic derives from a word form attributed to Homer's Odyssey, which later took its medical meaning from the Epidemics, a treatise by Hippocrates. Before Hippocrates, epidemios, epidemio, epidamos, and other variants had meanings similar to the current definitions of indigenous or endemic. Thucydides' description of the plague of Athens is considered one of the earliest accounts of a disease epidemic. By the early 17th century, the terms endemic and epidemic referred to contrasting conditions of population-level disease, with the endemic condition at low rates of occurrence and the epidemic condition widespread.